chosen one, someone who once ignored your warnings, is now sitting in total silence, overwhelmed by the reality that somebody feels messed up about turning against you. Everything you said is unfolding and more. As the situation continues to unravel, your insight is being validated in ways they never expected. There was a person in your life, a lover, a close friend, a family member, someone you were genuinely invested in. A situation was developing around that person, and you looked at it with the kind of eyes that have never been ordinary. Something activated in you the moment you looked closely enough. Not a feeling, a knowing. A feeling can be talked out of. A knowing sits in your gut like a stone and does not move, no matter how many reasons someone gives you to release it. What you knew was this: the person attached to someone in their life was dangerous. Not just difficult, not just a bad fit. Dangerous in the specific way that dark, calculating energy is dangerous. The kind that does not just cause pain, but causes destruction. The kind that moves through someone's entire existence like a wrecking ball, and then stands in the wreckage acting surprised that everything fell. You could feel the architecture of what was coming before the first wall came down. So you said something. You did not come in swinging with accusations and ultimatums. You came in the way that people who genuinely care come in, measured, deliberate, choosing your words carefully, because you understood both the weight of what you were carrying and the relationship you were delivering it inside of. You framed the truth in a way that left space to receive it without feeling ambushed. You showed up with care, so visible it should have been impossible to misread. You said, "Watch yourself. This is not what it looks like. This person is not who they are presenting themselves to be. Protect yourself." And that is where something critical needs to be understood. The dismissal that followed was not a reflection of your delivery. It was not about your timing or your wording or how many chances you gave. What it actually revealed was how deep the snake's conditioning had already gone. When someone is entangled enough with a manipulative energy, even the most carefully delivered truth arrives sounding like a threat. The snake had already been at work, slowly, quietly, surgically, building a filter inside the person you cared about. A filter designed to make your clarity look like jealousy, your concern look like control, and your discernment look like aggression. So when you spoke, your words were not received through neutral ears. They were processed through a frame the snake had already constructed long before you showed up. That is how this kind of darkness operates. It does not wait for the truth-teller to arrive. It builds the defense against you before you get there. The moment you speak it, something is set in motion that cannot be stopped by anyone. Not by the person who dismisses it, not by the snake that tries to bury it, and not even by you. Your words do not disappear when someone refuses to receive them. They go into the atmosphere. They settle into the memory of the person who heard them. They embed themselves in the fabric of the situation. And they wait, patient, exact, ready to be confirmed by whatever unfolds next. You did not just give an opinion, you gave a verdict, and verdicts do not expire. Your warning was not just ignored, it was used against you. The person you tried to protect did not just turn away from what you said, they handed it to the snake, and the snake turned it into a weapon. Suddenly your concern became the problem, your clarity became the threat. Your genuine, accurate read on a dangerous situation became evidence that you were the jealous one, the controlling one, the one with the hidden agenda, and the snake sold that version to anyone who would buy it. This is the narrative flip, and it is one of the most calculated moves in a manipulator's toolkit. The moment your truth became a threat to the operation moved to discredit the source. Flying monkeys got recruited, people who had no idea they were being used, carrying a false version of events designed to protect the snake and isolate you. Some people believed it, some pulled back from you, some went quiet. And you found yourself standing in a position you did not create, defending yourself against a charge that was invented by the very person you had tried to warn someone about. What makes this move so wicked is what was done with your actual words. Your warning was weaponized. Your genuine, caring, accurate concern was twisted into proof of your instability. You were not just painted as wrong, you were painted as obsessed, as someone manufacturing drama, as someone whose discernment was actually performance. The snake took the most honest thing you offered and constructed a lie out of it that was just believable enough to land with people who did not know you well enough to question it. That is the craft of this kind of darkness. It does not just lie, it constructs. It builds an alternative reality with just enough surface plausibility that it holds together under casual inspection. And it deploys that construction with the confidence of someone who has had practice dismantling the credibility of every person who ever saw through them. But underneath all of that noise, something else was happening. While the false version was circulating, while people were being recruited against you, while you were being positioned as the villain, your words were growing underground, in the dark, without any visible sign that they were doing anything at all. The person you warned could perform confidence in their choice. They could stay loud and committed to the version of events that justified ignoring you. But in the quiet, in the moments they could not outrun, something kept surfacing, a doubt they had to actively push back down, a question that returned no matter how many times they looked away from it. Your words were not dormant, they were working. Truth does not require an audience to do its job, it just requires time. If this touched your heart and mind, hype this video so more chosen ones can receive this message. And here is the part of this season that almost nobody talks about honestly, the specific cost of being right before the proof is visible. Because that period between speaking the truth and watching the truth get confirmed is not a comfortable one. It is the period where you are carrying complete accuracy with zero social reinforcement, the period where the false narrative is louder than your truth, the period where people who should know better are nodding along to a version of events that you know is constructed. That period tests something very specific in a person. It tests whether your truth lives in your gut or in other people's opinions of you. If your truth lives in other people's opinions, then the moment those opinions shift against you, your certainty shifts with it. You start softening your position. You start adding qualifiers to what you know. You start performing doubt that you do not actually feel, because doubt seems more socially acceptable than holding firm when everyone around you is pointing the other direction. But you did not do that. You held your position, not loudly, not combatively. You simply did not abandon what you knew, and that quiet, unshakable refusal to capitulate to the false narrative, even when the pressure to do so was real and sustained, is what separated you from everyone else in this situation. Everyone else eventually bent to the version of events the snake was selling. You did not bend. And when the truth finally surfaced, you were still standing exactly where you had always been, while everyone else had to walk back what they said. You did not go to war. You could have. You had the information, you had the accuracy, and you had every justified reason to make noise. But you did not spend your energy chasing a narrative or forcing people to take sides, not because you were passive, because you understood something the snake never will. Truth does not need you to fight for it. Truth is self-defending. It just needs time and space to do what it was already going to do. So you let the situation breathe. You stepped back, and in that space the snake's operation began consuming itself. That is what always happens when you remove yourself as a source of reaction for a manipulative energy to feed on. Without your engagement to point at, the chaos turns inward. The contradictions between different versions of the same lie start becoming visible. The people being managed in separate compartments begin comparing what they were told. The cracks widen, not because anyone forced them open, but because a structure built entirely on deception cannot support its own weight indefinitely. And you were not watching any of this unfold with obsession or urgency. You were living, you were building, you were moving forward in your own lane while the other lane turned into a demolition site. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. You've also noticed something else. A lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have gone quiet, videos removed, voices pushed off the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine, and when you join, you're not just supporting your favorite channels, you're also fueling your own rise. It's a 360 win. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is, you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. That season of moving in silence was not small. Every day you stayed grounded when reactivity would have been so much easier was a day you pulled further ahead. Every choice you made from integrity rather than emotion deepened the foundation under you. Most people who go through what you went through spend that period in reactivity, trying to control the narrative, trying to make people see, trying to force a vindication that can only ever arrive on its own timeline. You did not do that. You held your position. And holding your position while everything around you was engineered to move you off of it, that is the most powerful thing you could have done. Meanwhile, on the other side of your silence, the person you warned was quietly cracking. The losses were beginning, small at first, the kind that could still be explained away, the kind that a person telling themselves they made the right choice can still rationalize, but rationalization has a ceiling. And the more the situation confirmed what you had said, the harder it became to keep the ceiling in place. Your words were getting louder in proportion to how much the evidence was stacking up, not because you said anything new, because reality kept saying it for you. The assumption that kept the operation running was that the deception could be maintained indefinitely, that the image was solid enough to survive real scrutiny, that the people being played could be kept separated from each other's version of events forever. But performances have a runtime, and this one had run out. What got exposed was not just a single lie, it was the entire architecture of how the deception had been built, the scale of it, the calculation behind every move, the way trust had been used as raw material for manipulation rather than treated as something sacred, the warmth that had always been conditional, the loyalty that evaporated the moment someone stopped being useful, the way the snake had positioned itself as the victim of everyone it had actually victimized. And the person you warned began seeing their own receipts, not just what had been done to them, but how perfectly it mapped onto every specific thing you had said before any of it was visible, every pattern you named, every warning you delivered, every detail you tried to make clear when there was still time to change course. It was all there in order, confirmed by lived experience rather than by your word alone. That is a specific, devastating kind of confirmation because it arrives in two pieces at once. The first piece is the truth about the snake. The second piece, arriving at exactly the same moment, is the truth about the choice that was made to ignore you. Processing one requires processing the other. There is no way to understand how wrong the snake was without simultaneously understanding how right you were and what it cost to find that out the hard way. The flying monkeys were falling apart too. The people who had been used to carry stories against you were now on the receiving end of the same manipulation. The snake does not operate with loyalty, only with utility. And the moment the utility of each person ran out, so did any pretense of care toward them. The very people who had been weaponized against you were now experiencing exactly what you had warned someone about. When the maintenance of a deception finally fails, it fails all at once. Every piece of it was load-bearing, which means when one piece goes, everything attached to it goes with it. The financial instability that had been papered over became visible. The relationships built on different versions of the truth imploded when those versions finally met each other. The reputation that had been performed crumbled the moment the performance could no longer be sustained. And where were you? You were not in the rubble. You were not managing a collapse. You were not anywhere near the tower when it came down because you had never built your life inside someone else's chaos. You had kept your foundation separate. You had let what needed to fall without putting your hands underneath it. Your integrity was untouched. Your truth was confirmed. Your name was being restored, not by anything you argued, but by the situation itself producing the evidence you never needed to manufacture. The person you warned was now standing inside the exact collapse you described before it began. And in that wreckage, with everything else having shifted and contradicted itself and fallen apart, your words were the only account that had not moved. They were exactly where you left them, exactly what you said they were, exactly as precise as when you first delivered them. That kind of confirmation does not arrive softly. It arrives with the full force of every doubt that was suppressed, every question that was pushed back down, every moment where the truth was right there and the choice was made to look away from it. All of that releases at once, and when it releases, the only voice that makes any sense in the middle of all of it is the one that told the truth before the truth was convenient. That was you. It was always you. And there is something else happening right now that deserves to be named directly. The people who pulled back from you, the ones who went quiet, the ones who chose the snake's version over yours without ever sitting down and asking you directly, they are in an uncomfortable position right now. Because the evidence that confirmed your truth also confirmed their error in judgment. They cannot celebrate the snake's exposure without acknowledging that you pointed at the snake first, and they chose not to listen. That is not a comfortable reckoning. That is not something that gets brushed aside with a casual apology or a vague "I should have known better." It sits. It requires something from a person, and the people who are honest enough to let it require something of them, those are the people who are finding their way back to you right now. Your accuracy in this was not a lucky read. It was the natural output of someone whose discernment has been built and refined through every hard thing survived, every time honesty was chosen over comfort, every moment truth was held even when the social pressure to release it was overwhelming. That accumulation is what produced the precision of what you spoke into this situation. You did not guess, you knew, and the difference between guessing and knowing is the difference between someone hoping to be right and someone who is reporting what they see. That is a calling. And callings do not get invalidated because someone refused the message. You cannot neutralize a truth teller by discrediting them socially. You can delay the impact for a season. But the truth teller's accuracy is not dependent on whether people believe them in the moment. It is dependent on whether what they said was true and what you said was true. Which means no amount of narrative management, no number of flying monkeys, no constructed alternative reality could permanently suppress it. When the snake came for your credibility, your name, your relationships, your stability, that was not a show of strength. That was panic dressed up as aggression. Only a genuinely frightened energy mobilizes that much effort against a single person. The scale of what was deployed against you is a direct reflection of how accurately the snake identified your clarity as a threat to its entire operation. You were targeted that specifically because you were that significant. Every attack activated protection rather than eroding it. Every dark intention sent in your direction returned to its source amplified. Every attempt to undermine your foundation caused the attacker's own ground to shake harder. That is the mechanics of what happens when something moves against a person who is genuinely covered. The attack does not just fail, it reverses, and you are watching that reversal complete itself in real time. In the desperation of the collapse, one last attempt was made to redirect the damage toward you, because this kind of energy does not accept loss quietly. When the walls are falling, when the people are leaving, when the image is visibly disintegrating, the instinct is to escalate, to go for maximum disruption on the way out. To take aim at whatever is still within reach of a person who has nothing left to protect, and therefore nothing left to lose. Your name, your stability, your peace, those were the targets. Only someone who knows they have already lost makes that kind of move. Only someone who understood, on some level, precisely how right you had been and how consequential that accuracy was going to be for them, would spend their last resources trying to bring you down on the way out the door. That move was not strategy. That move was a confession. It said, I know what you said was true. I know what I did. And since I cannot undo any of it, I am going to cause as much noise as I can before the silence takes over. The noise did not reach you. Your foundation was already too established to be shaken by desperation. The people who needed to see clearly had already seen clearly. The evidence was already out. And when that final attempt landed, it landed on a version of your situation that no longer existed because you had already moved forward and the attack was aimed at where you used to be. The interference is gone, and what follows the end of that kind of sustained, targeted interference is not just relief, it is acceleration. Every door that was being held shut by the chaos around you is now open. Every resource that was being redirected by the snake's operation is now flowing in the direction it was always supposed to flow. Every connection that was being poisoned by the false narrative about you is now either restored with full clarity or replaced by something of greater quality. Your name is being restored without you arguing for it. The evidence is doing the work quietly, and then louder, and then loudly enough that the people who pulled back when the false version was circulating are recalibrating. Some are coming forward, some are staying quiet but recalibrated. And the ones who walked away without ever asking for your side, you can release them cleanly. Anyone who was willing to abandon you based solely on what the snake said, without ever sitting down with your perspective directly, was not built to stand in your corner at the level this next season requires. Your ability to build financially, creatively, professionally, relationally is no longer being interfered with. The sabotage that was running in the background of your material life has lost its power source. When that kind of sustained interference ends, what you are naturally capable of starts moving again at the pace it was always meant to move at. Pay attention to what shifts in your practical life in this season. The opportunities that appear without you forcing them. The decisions that feel clear instead of foggy. The right people showing up without you having to perform for their approval. That is not random. That is your life returning to the trajectory it was always on before someone with dark intentions tried to reroute it and failed. There is also something specific happening with your voice right now. The very thing the snake tried to discredit, your clarity, your ability to see what others miss, your willingness to say what is real, even when it is uncomfortable, that is now your most publicly validated asset. People are not just believing what you say because they like you. They are believing it because the record now shows that when you spoke before any evidence was visible, you were right. That is a different kind of credibility. That is not the credibility of a likable person. That is the credibility of someone who has been proven accurate under pressure in the specific circumstances where accuracy costs something. That kind of credibility does not fade, it compounds, and it opens access to conversations, relationships, and spaces that require exactly the level of trust you have now earned in the most undeniable way possible. The person you warned is in the active, ongoing excavation of every moment that led to where they ended up. And every layer of that excavation leads back to the same place, to what you said, to when you said it, to how specific and accurate it was, and to the choice that was made to go the other way. That is not a comfortable place to sit. That is the specific kind of regret that does not ease up, because it is attached to knowledge, not ignorance. The warning existed. The truth was available, the choice was made with full information in hand, and still came out wrong. That kind of regret is not something that fades with time. It is the kind that resurfaces every time the consequences become more visible. What you need to understand about the return is what it is not. It is not someone coming back to a position of power over you. It is not someone who gets to reset the dynamic as though none of this happened. The person coming back is not the same person who dismissed you. That person has been through the exact collapse your warning described, and whatever they are carrying when they reach back out, they are carrying it with a completely different understanding of what you are and what you see. You owe no one access to your energy. You owe no one a rebuilt connection simply because circumstances have changed. What you do with this return is your decision to make from a place of complete power. But if you receive it from altitude, from the certainty of someone who already knew how this was going to resolve, not from a wound that needs their acknowledgement to heal. You already know you were right. You knew it before anyone else was ready to say so. That is the posture you operate from. Sovereign, grounded, entirely at peace with however it goes. The fact that all roads are leading back to you is not accidental, it is structural. When you are the only person in a situation who told the truth from the beginning, you become the fixed point. Everything else in the situation has shifted, been revised, been exposed as false, or collapsed entirely, but your account has not moved. Your words are sitting exactly where you left them, unchanged, unrevised, fully intact. That makes you the only reliable reference point in a landscape where every other reference point has been discredited. People are drawn back to stable ground when everything around them is unstable. And right now, you are the most stable ground in this entire situation. Not because you performed stability, because you were genuinely grounded in truth the whole time. That groundedness is what makes the return inevitable. It is not about whether someone likes you or is embarrassed or has processed their feelings fully. It is about the fact that when a person needs to understand what actually happened, you are the only source they can trust to tell them something accurate. You were the truth teller at the beginning. You are the truth teller now. And that position, the one you held at personal cost, the one you never abandoned, even when it would have been so much easier to walk away from it, is the position that everyone in this situation is now orienting themselves around. Whether they say it out loud or not, that is what is happening. The gravitational pull of genuine accuracy is bringing people back into your orbit because accurate people are rare, and when the world is full of shifting narratives and manufactured versions of events, rare becomes essential. If you have been processing this as a personal conflict between specific people, zoom out, because what happened to you was never just about one situation. People who carry what you carry, that level of genuine discernment, that commitment to accuracy over comfort, that inability to look away from what is real, are always targeted by the specific kind of darkness you just navigated. Not because the darkness knows your name, because your frequency is fundamentally incompatible with deception. You make manipulation uncomfortable simply by being present and paying attention. And when a deeply deceptive energy encounters someone who operates the way you do, it registers the threat before it can even fully articulate why, and then it moves to neutralize. That is why the attack was as coordinated and personal as it was. Shallow attacks do not land on people like you. You see those coming and step aside without breaking stride. The only attack with any real chance of landing had to go deep. It had to go after your credibility, your name, your relationships, your material foundation, and the person you were closest to, all at once. That level of coordination is not proportional to a regular disagreement. It is proportional to the level of power the darkness recognized in you and was afraid of. The scale of what was deployed against you is a direct testimony to what you carry. Darkness does not overinvest in targets it considers insignificant. It went this hard because you are that significant. You know this now in a way that was forged rather than simply received. Anyone can be told they are powerful. What happened to you gave you evidence that cannot be disputed. You walked through a targeted, coordinated assault on every meaningful area of your life and came out more aligned, more clear, and more certain of who you are than when you went in. That is the upgrade. It was not handed to you. It was produced in you by a pressure that was designed to break you and instead built you into something it never should have touched. Somebody is sitting somewhere right now with your words playing back in their mind. Not vaguely, specifically. Every phrase, every detail you pointed at before it became visible, Every warning that was dismissed and then confirmed in the most undeniable way possible. The mind that is blown right now is not blown gently. It is blown the way a dam breaks, all at once, with the full force of everything that was held back, finally releasing with nowhere left to go. You painted the exact picture of what that person is living in right now. Before there was a single piece of evidence, before anyone else could see it, before the proof had arrived. You spoke it into the atmosphere, and it waited, patient, exact, unshakable, until the situation caught up to what you already knew. That is not a small thing. That is the full demonstration of what you carry. Now look at what you built while all of that was unfolding. Not loudly, not with an audience watching. You were building the way that real, lasting things get built, quietly, on a foundation tested by the very pressure that was supposed to break it. Every moment you chose integrity over reaction was a brick. Every time you held your ground when everything around you was designed to move you off of it was a brick. Every time the darkness did its worst and you refused to become it was a brick. Every time your warning was dismissed and you did not collapse into bitterness, that was a brick too. You were building a structure that cannot be taken from you, because what you built is not dependent on what anyone else believes about you. It is not built from validation or social approval or the right people saying the right things at the right time. It is built from who you actually are, expressed consistently under the specific kind of pressure that exposes whether a person's character is real or performed. Your character is real. And the proof of that is not just the confirmation that you were right about the snake, right about the situation, right about everything you tried to make visible before it became undeniable. The proof is that you are standing here whole, clear, moving forward, while the person who turned against your word is sitting in the rubble of every choice that followed that turning. You do not need to announce that. You do not need to make it a spectacle. The situation has already made it visible to everyone paying attention. Your only job now is to walk into what is opening, into the season of acceleration, into the relationships built on what is real, into the opportunities aligned with who you actually are, into the recognition that does not require you to shrink yourself to receive it, into the full expression of the gift that darkness tried to discredit and could not touch. Stand in it without apology, without performing modesty for people who are still recalibrating what they are looking at, without waiting for anyone's permission to occupy the position that was always yours. You were right when it cost you something to be right. You held when holding was the hardest thing you could do. You stayed true when every incentive in the environment was pointing toward compromise. And now consider what it means that you are standing here with all of that behind you. Every person who doubted you publicly is now privately recalibrating. Every person who carried a false version of events is now sitting with the discomfort of having done that. Every person who chose the snake's narrative over yours is now looking at evidence that their choice was wrong. And you do not have to manage any of that. You do not have to guide them through it or accept their processing on their timeline or make space for their embarrassment to resolve itself in your direction. Your only obligation right now is to yourself, to step into the next level of what you are building with the full confidence of someone who has been vindicated, not by argument but by reality itself, and now the truth you held is standing up in front of everyone who doubted it. The tower they built on deception is dust on the ground. Yours is still standing.